God? Hold your hand up good and high. Come on, don't act so pious and religious. If you're pious and religious, you probably don't belong here. Let's just get serious. I'm going to ask you again. Anybody here ever doubted God? Hold your hand up good and high. Sure you have. We've all been there. We all have to go through a season where we're not sure God exists. Is it true? Is it not true? What's it true? And some of you's right there right now. You're not even sure you believe all this. How do we know the Bible was written? I mean, by godly people and all this kind of stuff. And everything in the world makes you want to believe you're crazy for believing this. And so what happens is the natural outcome is we doubt. And see, all of us have to go through that. I grew up in a Christian home, and a lot of you did, where my family just told me about God, told me about God, told me about God, told me about God, told me about God. And when I got about 19 or 20 years old, I had to make a decision. Do I believe in God because Mom and Daddy said it, or am I going to believe in God because my own self? You have to make a transition from Mom and Daddy's faith to your faith. And some of you got lost in that transition. Some of you had that transition at 13. Some of you is 30. It doesn't matter. For me, it was around 19 or 20 years old. I had this transition where I had to decide, do I believe in God or not? And the reason I was doubting that for the first time is because at that time in my life, I was going through the fieriest, the worst trial I had ever gone through up until that point. And I didn't understand why God didn't do what I wanted Him to do. I didn't understand why God hadn't answered my prayer the way I thought He should have answered my prayer. And I began to question, is He even there? Am I even talking to anybody? Is my prayers just bouncing off the ceiling right back on my head? And I had got to a place, and some of you looking at me real judgmental, but how many of you have ever been there? Anybody other than me? I had got to a place, you see, we do that. When God don't act like we want Him to act, it bothers us. And so I had gotten to a place where I didn't know if there was a God, and if there was a God, I wasn't sure He was a good God. Now the problem with me having this problem and having this, it's a safe place, and if you're there, it's okay. I'm giving you permission. The problem that made it so dangerous for me is when I was questioning if there was a God was when I was a preacher and a pastor of a church. That's the problem. Now, for those who don't know my story, I started preaching when I was a senior in high school. I started pastoring when I was 19 or 20 years old. This church, when it was in Lemon Springs, actually, I had no business pastoring at that time, but I did pastor at that time. I started preaching when I was 18. Somebody said, why were you preaching so young? I don't know. It just kind of happened that way. You see, God called me into the ministry whenever I was 13 years of age. I knew I was going to be a preacher when I was 13, and I knew that was God's call on my life. And somebody said, well, why did you receive the call of God so young? It's because I was convinced my daddy wouldn't whoop a man of God. Telling you he will too. See, some of y'all got time out. We got knocked out. You understand what I'm saying? They won't no simmer down. Simmer, inside voice. They won't none of that stuff. I told you shut up. So, I mean, it was just, So anyway, that's how it worked for me. So I knew I was called to preach whenever I was 13 years. And don't judge Daddy. If y'all had to raise me, wouldn't you have done it too? I mean, right? Hey, it was, he had to raise me without ADD and ADHD kind of medicine. You know, there wasn't no such thing as Ritalin. There wasn't none of that kind of stuff going on. It was rough on him. That's why he's so crazy now. It has nothing to do with what I'm saying. So I remember I had preached a fiery message. I had given this altar call. I was 19, 20 years old. I was going through this terrible trial. And in those days, what we would do is at the end of the sermon, we would have everybody stand, and then we would call on somebody to pray. I said, Brother Claude, would you close us in prayer? And then Brother Claude would pray, and then we would walk to the back door, and then we would block the door so no one could leave church till they told us how good we did. And that's the way it worked. So I was in the process of walking to the back door, and I was walking to the back door, and I remember having this thought, you just lied to them people. Everything you just said was not true. Now, when you're a preacher, that's a bad thing. You understand? When you don't believe in God and you're a pastor, it's a terrible thing. And so I had to I did a study. I said, okay, I either got to change professions or I got to get an understanding of this. So I did a study, and I said, I preached a series, packed the place out. I said, how to know there's a God without using the Bible. Everybody. So come to find out, everybody was having that same doubt. Then how to know the Bible's true without using the Bible, because you can't use the Bible to claim the Bible. So how to know the Bible's true without using the Bible. And it was an incredible series, and I still preach that from time to time. In fact, you can probably go to our website, and if it's not there, fire me an email at pastordale@stanleychapel.com, and I will find out how to get it up there. But but I preach it every so often. I typically call it Why I Believe, or something along that line. Why I Believe. So if you're struggling and you'd like to know why we still believe, I can tell you after, that's been a long time. I know I look like I'm only 22, but that's really been a long time ago whenever I did it. And so I still believe, 20 years later, I still believe, as much as I've ever believed, that this is true, absolutely true. Now today, I'm not going to give you all that data and all that research that I did. You'll have to go get that somewhere else, or you can go dig it out on your own. Go do your own study. You don't have to be a preacher to understand that, but go find out what you believe and why you believe it. Today, what I want to talk to you about is why you doubt. And I want to help you understand why you're struggling. Because some of you know God's real. You know that. But it's like you keep having that doubt and you keep second guessing. And I want to explain to you why you have that. Because if you understand why you're having that, maybe you're going to be able to stop that cycle and you're not going to be plagued with unbelief and doubt for the rest of your life. So let's get started. Let's have a Stanley Chapel social media moment. And you can post if I say anything. If you're new, we're not scared of technology here. You don't have to turn your phone off or your tablet off. Just put it on vibrate, because if it rings during the service, you are responsible to buy pizza for everyone. And it's awkward, you know. But anyway, it's that's what happens. So you don't have so don't let it go off during the service. But if I say anything post-worthy, tweetable, or anything like that, go ahead and post and tweet away. Just make sure it's on subject and it's kind. We're having a little war. If you're following me on Facebook, we're having Jay Jackson and I, that overgrown guy that does announcements, you know what I'm talking about. He says some very hurtful things to me, and there's a picture of me in a pink shirt standing beside him, and somebody said something about it. He said, "That was Pastor Dell. I thought it was a sun kiss machine." Don't laugh. Jesus don't love that. I'm publicly humiliating him is what I'm trying to do. And I did it first service, and then he had the nerve to say it was an honest mistake. I will knock him out. You understand? You heard David and Goliath? That's me and him, baby. It's coming on. Has nothing to do with nothing. All right, Stanley Chapel. This is why we can't ever get out of church on time. All right, Stanley Chapel social media moment of the week. Ready? You don't have to understand everything to believe. See, that's a lie the devil tries to put in our head, that you have to understand everything in order to believe in something. But that's not true. You don't understand a lot of things, and you still get blessed by it. You don't understand the internet, but you still get blessed by it. You don't understand 3G, but you still get blessed by it. You don't understand electricity, but you still flip the switch on. Most of us don't understand internal combustion engines, but we still crank the truck down. You don't have to understand stuff to be blessed by it. And so, but for whatever reason, the devil makes us think that if you can't understand everything about God, how did he create the world in 6 days? How did he heal somebody? How did he save somebody? How did he resurrect from the grave? How does that connect to me? If you can't understand everything, then you can't believe in any of it. And that is a lie that keeps the church and keeps Christians pinned down, because there's a lot about God you can't explain. And when you get to a place of maturity where you realize that's actually a good thing. You see, I have to tell you, I am glad I can't explain everything about God. And let me tell you the reason why. Because if I can explain everything about God, that means God's no smarter than me. Now, how many of you know we want a God smarter than Dale? Can I get a witness? Anybody? Yes. All over the building. Absolutely. How many of you know you need a God smarter than you? Yes. Can anybody? Raise your hand. Yes, yes, yes. Some of you's like, I don't know. Yeah, trust me. We want a God smarter than you. I promise you. You see, but when we don't understand, we think we have to understand. My kids, they don't understand that I'm smarter than them. I mean, my wife disagrees sometimes, but really, I'm smarter than them. Most of the time, I make decisions, but they don't understand. And see, in their mind, decisions that they don't understand. When I don't act like a parent, the way they think a parent should act. When I don't do what they think a parent should do. When I don't accomplish what they think I should accomplish, they second guess me, and I do the same for God. But one day, whenever they look back at it, they'll be able to say, "Thank God, my dad was smarter than me in those situations." And one day, I believe we'll say the same thing. Thank God he was smarter than me. Now, see, here's why you doubt. Ready? Here's where doubt comes from. Doubt comes from when you're focused on the unexplainable. Goes in your blank. When you focus on the unexplainable. Because there's a lot of things about God you just cannot explain. You cannot say it enough ways. You can't put your head around it. I don't understand it either. You may ask, you say, "Dale, why didn't God heal my grandmother when I prayed? Why didn't God let keep my parents from divorcing when I prayed? Why did he allow that cancer to come? Why did he allow this to happen to me?" And I have to be honest with you, I don't know. There's a lot I don't know. There's a lot I can't explain. And when you focus on the unexplainable, it will make you doubt. But here's what I want you to know. Here's where faith comes from, is when you focus on the undeniable. Because there's a lot of things about God that are absolutely undeniably true. And you cannot in any way change the facts. And the issue is what you focus on. I think today, that's my whole sermon. And I think as I go along today, you're going to be able to understand it, you're going to be able to get it, and it's going to click with you exactly what I mean by all this. Today we're looking at John chapter 9, one of the most hilarious stories of the Bible. It's one of my favorite stories, and that's one reason I'll go ahead and brace it. I'm having trouble with this week's sermon. It's going a little long for two reasons. One, I was at a conference last week, and I heard preachers preaching all week, and when I hear preachers preaching all week, it just makes the preacher and me want to preach. So I might get a little preachy, all right? So if this is your first time, you say, man, he's a little loud, he's a little excited. I'm not always this loud, this excited, but sometimes, you understand? So here's who we are. Now, the second reason is because there's just so many points in this sermon, in this passage, that you could stop and just camp out and preach revival on if you wanted to, or weeks on. But we don't have time to do that. One of the most hilarious stories in the Bible. Ready? John chapter 9, verse 1 through 18. Here it is. Ready? I'm reading from the NIV, the 1984 version of the NIV. As he, talking about Jesus, went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, talking to Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now see, this was a misunderstanding about God in that time. And we kind of have the same misunderstanding. Whenever they saw someone born deaf or blind or leprosy or whatever, it was this mindset that if something bad happened to them in their life, then it must be that they've done something wrong and they're cursed by God. And see, some of you still believe that. Anytime anything bad happens to you, you're like, oh no, God's getting me back because of this that I did years ago and this, that, you know. And we got this same mindset that God just, it's just ingrained. It's just ingrained that good things are not going to happen. I mean, bad things are not going to happen to good people. And we just got this in there. Well, they had the same deal, and they believed if bad things happen to you, then there must be something wrong with you, that you were cursed by God. And so they're asking a legitimate question to Jesus, and all right, we're just curious to know this guy. We don't know him, but we're just curious to know which one was it? Was it him or was it his parents? And here's what Jesus said, verse 3. He said, neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus. But this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. What? That don't even make no sense. You're saying that God, I mean, we thought it was cursed by God, and you're saying God actually allowed this guy to be blind? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that God has allowed this situation because he wants to show his power. And in fact, what I'm trying to tell you guys is that not all bad things happen because you're bad people. Sometimes things happen to good people or bad people and all kinds of people, not even for earthly purposes, just for the glory of God. That kind of messes your head up, don't it? Because you thought every time something bad happens, it was straight from hell, or it's the devil, or it's whatever. And it's never occurred to you that God may allow situations in your life that are horrible in order to display his glory. So they're like, what? You know, and then he says, verse 4, he's talking, he says, as long as it is day, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, read this last sentence with me. 1, 2, 3. I am the light of the world. And the disciples are going, or Jesus, are you just like having a random moment or something? I mean, we were just talking about a blind guy, and now you just started talking about light of the world. Back to earth, you know, what are you talking about? You're the light of the world. Rome's the light of the world. Greek philosophy's the light of the world. You're a carpenter from Palestine. People don't even know your name. What are you talking about? And here's what Jesus said. Yeah, I'm telling you, guys, your question reveals to me that you got a mixed up view of God. You thought that this guy sinned or either his parents sinned. And I'm just telling you, it's neither one. It's to show the glory of God. And I'm telling you, I'm here and I'm the light of the world. And before this time, there's been darkness on the earth about Jesus and about God. There's been darkness about this whole thing about what God is like. And I've come to shine a little light on the subject. But you better be paying attention. You better be taking notes because I'm going back to heaven. And when I do, darkness is going to come back. And people get confused about God. People start thinking God's supposed to make them happy. They start thinking that God's supposed to do for them whatever they want Him to do. And they start getting mixed up views. In fact, you know what's going to happen? They're going to get so screwed up in their thinking about God, they'll fly planes into buildings and kill people in the name of God. They'll blow up people in the name of God. They will make kids do unbelievable things in the name of God. They will do incredibly harm in the name of God. And it's not because it's true, it's because they mess things up. In fact, you know what they're going to do? They're going to have a grandma that dies of cancer and they're going to get mad at God for it. And they're going to have somebody who's going to be a drunk driver and kill, and they're going to get mad at God for it. And they're going to get this. And I'm just telling you that people get messed up in their view of God because when God don't act like they think He ought to act, when He don't do what they think God ought to do, it irritates them. And I'm just telling you, I'm shining some light. Y'all better be taking notes because when I'm gone, you've got to tell the truth about who God is and what God's about. And now it's like He knows they're kind of like, what? You know, so He does this miracle to try to validate what He's saying and prove what He says. So here's what He does, right? Having said this, verse 6. Having said this, He spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. Now, I'm going to offend some religious folks in here today, all right? Religious people usually don't like our church anyway, so I'm just going to be straight up with you, all right? Jesus, He's kind of weird sometimes. Now, I know that just makes some of you nervous and mad. I'm just telling the truth, children. That's weird. When you spit on the dirt and make mud and put it on somebody's eyes, come on. Ain't that weird? How many of you let me do that to you? You come up after the service and let me just spit on dirt and do that. I mean, come on. Just put your religiosity down for a second. That's just straight up strange, right? That's probably why a lot of people didn't like hanging out with Jesus. I mean, because He's weird. I mean, can you imagine? Because, you know, y'all just let me go. Can I go with it for just a second? Is that all right? I'm going to do it anyway. But come on, let's go. Can you just imagine? Just put yourself in that place. I don't know what it was like. I don't know what it was like. But I just imagine the blind guy over there. He's been sitting beside the road. He's been holding the can. And they come by and they say, hey, Jesus, who's sinned? This guy. And he might have been like Stevie Wonder over there. I mean, I don't know. He might have been sitting over there, you know, just kind of doing his thing. And he's waiting to find out. Because he's always want to know, was it his sin or God's sin or his parents' sin? He's sitting over there and God says it won't either one of them sin. And he's probably like, I ain't never heard that reply before. That's kind of crazy. You know, that's kind of good. You know, he's sitting over there, and then he just hears something. What's going on? You know what's happening? What's that in my eyes? Don't worry about it. It's good. It's all good. I don't know. It's anointed preaching today, ain't it, y'all? or maybe, I don't know how it was. Or maybe Jesus had a sense of humor. I don't know. I apologize if I'm offending anybody. Maybe Jesus had a sense of humor. And maybe the guy's just kind of sitting there. He don't even know what's going on. And Jesus is like... I don't know, but I can't imagine this situation without it being a little weird. I mean, come on, anybody other than me, raise your hand. That's a little weird, right? I can't imagine how this went down where it felt normal. I mean, at all, you know. So anyway, he puts the thing on his eyes, and he spits on her, and then Jesus says, go, he told him. And I bet the guy's like, that ain't no trouble, I'll be glad to go. And wash it. I mean, I bet he's thinking, yeah, I'm going to wash. He's probably thinking, man, I've been getting jokes like this all my life. I thought this was going to be something different. Go and wash in the pool of Siloam. This means sin. So the man went and washed, but then notice what happened. And came home what? I mean, this man, he goes, he's thinking, sorry, I thought it's something different. And I got over there. And he looks, and for the first time he sees the pool. And he sees his reflection in the pool. He's never seen himself. Who's that man? It's me. And he looks up and he sees, you know, I don't know, trees and plants, buildings or whatever, plants. And he's like, and he looks up and he can see. And he don't go find Jesus. My man just runs home. He just picks up and he takes off running. He says he came home seeing it, and he's like, I want to go back to my neighborhood. I want to see my mama. I've never seen my mama. I don't even know what she looks like. I want to see those guys that I hung out. I want to see my dog. He's been my best friend. I don't even know what he looks like. I want to see what my dog looks like. I got to go back home and see my boy. He don't go find Jesus. He goes back home. And it says here, his neighbors and those who had formerly seen him beg and ask, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was. Others said, no. He only looks like the man. But he himself insisted, I am the man. Right here it is. You know what I'm saying? Right here it is in Scripture. I am the man. I am the man. Translated. I mean, it's weird. He comes back rolling up into his neighborhood, the place he grew up, the place he laid there, and they told him all his life he was cursed by God. And he rolls up in there like, ain't you the boy? I mean, ain't you, Johnny, is that you? Fred, is that you? We've known you. Yeah. No, ain't it him? He can't be him. He sees it. Yeah, he's like, no, it's me, it's Ernest D. I am the man. I am the one that was laying there. I'm the one. I can see. I've never known what you guys look like. To be honest, y'all ain't all that hot. But, I mean, I can see you now. It's crazy. Then he says, verse 10, and they says, how then were your eyes opened? They demanded. He replied, the man they called Jesus, y'all heard him, right? He made some mud. I can tell y'all how he made mud because y'all been picking on me all my life anyway. And put it on my eyes. And he told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed. And then I could see. And I came home to have a party. Let's get some cake and hire a band. I am the man. You understand? Thought I'd get a little attention today. And they're like, but how did that happen? I don't know how that happened. Why did that don't make sense to us? And so where's the man? They ask. I don't know, and I don't care, he said, probably. I didn't even see him. I didn't even go look at him. I don't even know what he looks like. I just come home to see my mama and see my friends and see my neighbors. I'm the man. Can somebody give me a cupcake? I mean, I can see. Does that not matter? But see, there's so much unexplainable stuff here. We can't focus on what's undeniably true. We got to focus on what's totally, we can't explain this. And because we can't explain it, then we got to be able to understand it. So verse 13, they brought him to the Pharisees. This is where the music, dum-de-dum-dum. Because this is the people who know all about God. They got to get this straight. Got to get it straight. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the days on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was the Sabbath. Oh, no, you didn't, Jesus. You don't be healing nobody on the Sabbath. You can't work on the Sabbath. You ought to know better than that. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes. I still ain't going to tell y'all how he did that. The man replied, and I washed and now I see. Is this where the celebration's going to start? I don't hear the band playing yet. When's the band going to start playing? Are y'all going to surprise me with a big cake? Where's the cake? I mean, he's thinking, when's the party going to start? Does anybody care? I can see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. Now, how do you know he's not from God? Because we know that God keeps the Sabbath. How do you know God keeps the Sabbath? Because we've been studying God all our life. Because we've been knowing how God thinks all our life. Because we've been doing what God does all our life. We know all there is to know about God. We got God. We've done figured out systems, and we done figured out rules, and we got all these things. We know what God thinks like. We got God right here in the box. Got God right here defined. We got him right here. You want to see God? Come here. I'll show you. Come here. Look real close. Ready? Butter. Does anybody know what that means? Raise your hand. If you don't, you probably should change your diaper, because that means you're just a kid. I just told my age. All right. Let's get back to the anointed preaching. All right, now. So he says, we got God right here. We got God figured out. God don't do stuff we don't want him to do. God don't do stuff we don't like him to do. We got him right here. And God don't heal people on the Sabbath. Now, how do you know God don't heal people on the Sabbath? Because we know what God does. And God always does what we think he should do. God don't act outside of our boundaries. God don't act in ways that we don't understand. Because if God does things just like we would do them if we were God. And if God ever does something outside of our box, then we know that won't God. That must have been the devil, because we got God right here. And we got it all locked up. We got a bow on it. It's all right here. You're going to see God come here. I'll show you. Be careful. Don't let him out of the box. And you can get right here, and then we can shut it back. Because you know why? We are the keepers of God. We are the keepers of truth. We are the keepers of this. And we can't explain mud on eyes and washing and healing. And because we can't explain that, we're absolutely convinced it won't God. Isn't that crazy? But it's so us. But others ask, how can a sinner do such miraculous signs? So they were divided. You're saying that you couldn't do that. You're saying he couldn't do from God, yet it was a miracle, and I'm confused. Somebody's got to put that together. And the blind guy's like, I don't care. Does anybody care that I can see? I can now see my mama for the first time. I can now see the girl that had that voice that made chills go down my spine for the first time. I can now see my dog. I can now play baseball. Does anybody care? Why are we so worried about whether or not you're supposed to do it on the Sabbath? I thought you guys were my friends. That's why I came home. Y'all were nicer to me when I couldn't see. I think you might have liked me being less than you. Finally, they turned again to the blind man. What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened. The man replied, he's a prophet? I don't know. I don't care. What do you want me to say here? What's the right answer? They're like, we can't decide. So what is he? And he's like, I don't know where he came from. I don't even know what he looks like. I don't understand if the chemical makeup between saliva and mud and pool of shot. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't know where he's at. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if you're supposed to do it on the Sabbath. I don't know if he's from God. I don't know. I'll give you whatever answer you want to give. All right, I won't say he's from God, since you don't like people saying he's from God. I'll just say he's a prophet. Would that work? He's a prophet? Well, you know, he don't know really. He's just trying to get him off his back. Verse 18: the Jews still did not believe that he had been blind and he received his sight. Why? Because they can't explain it, and until they can explain it, they cannot focus on it. They've got to get an explanation. Until they sent for the man's parents. Give me a break. So now they get this guy's parents in, who's already had all this shame, and they bring him in, and they're like, hey, we don't believe this was your son, and so can you please just verify, do an identity that this is your son, and can you please tell us about this whole eye, and why was he really not blind, and all this? And his parents are like, and I bet he's looking at his parents' tears, and that's my dad, and that's my mom. I've never seen them before, and they're just having this moment, and the Pharisees are there, and they're looking, and can you please? And say, yes, my boy. I can't explain it, but he can get a job now. You know what I'm saying? We thought he's going to have to live with us all of his life. I mean, you guys, you got to understand, when he was born, we were just like any other parent. We thought, oh, bubbling little baby boy, and he's just going to carry him. And you know how devastated we were to realize that our son couldn't see? You ever tried to explain a sunset to your son who can't see? You ever tried to explain green to your son who can't see? You ever tried to explain what his mother looks like? And then to top it all off, our religious leaders, you guys, who know everything about God, and y'all have got it figured out, you told us that either it was our sin or his sin. So we've been feeling cursed by God all of our life and an outcast of this community and this society. And we were pretty sure it wasn't him. I mean, that's our boy. We were pretty sure it wasn't his sin. So we just always assumed that we brought this judgment on our son. And he couldn't see. He would never play baseball. He would probably never get married, because what girl wants to marry a guy who's cursed by God and lays on the street shaking a cup with coins in it? And now, he can see. Evidently, God does love us. Evidently, we're not cursed by God. He is going to get a job. He is going to get married. He is going to have a life now. And our dreams and our hopes are right back in effect. We can't tell you how this happened, but I can tell you that's my boy. He's always been blind, and we are thrilled he can see. So he said, just ask him. He's an adult. Whatever he says, that's what it is. See, they were kind of scared. They'd already been excommunicated. Now, for the first time, they're back in the community. So they say, ask the son again. So verse 24, John 9. Said, a second time, they summoned the man who had been blind. Give glory to God. Notice the tone changing. Now they're getting frustrated. They said, we know this man's a sinner. Now, how do you know that? Because we got God right here in a box, and we know God don't heal on the Sabbath, and we can't explain it, so we know this is not right. Verse 25. He replied, whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know. Come on, read it out loud with me. Strong and loud. Everybody, because it's really cool to read out loud in church on the count of 3. Ready? One thing I do know. 1, 2, 3. I was blind, but now I see. Isn't that awesome? I can't put all this together for you. I don't know. I don't know if you're supposed to heal on the Sabbath. I don't know. But there's one thing that counterbalances all this stuff. I don't know. I don't know about the mud. I don't know about the pool of Siloam. I don't know where it's at. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if he's from God. I don't know if you do that on Sabbath. But there's one thing that counterbalances all of it. I used to be blind, but now I see. And I don't know why you can't accept that. I don't know why you keep focusing on the unexplainable and you're missing the obvious. The big elephant in the room, the undeniable. I was blind, but now I see. I just thought you guys would celebrate with me. I didn't realize it was going to make you this mad, that God got out of your box. Then they asked him, what did he do? How did he open your eyes? And he's like, give me a break. I've told you you're not going to believe me. And he's getting frustrated because they can't embrace this until they can explain it. So notice his answer. He's getting a little irritated now. Verse 27, he answered, I have told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? He's taunting them now, baby. He's like, I can see you, homeboy. I can taunt you back. Now, you've been messing with me all my life. Verse 28, then they hurled insults at him and said, you are this fellow's disciples. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as far as this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from. And since we don't know where he comes from, it must not be true, because we got God in a box. If you'd like to have a God box, we'll get you one. But it's going to have to be just like ours. You better not have any out-of-the-box experiences. This man answered, now that's remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. You know that God does not listen to sinners, right? He listens to godly men who does his will, right? Y'all believe that, right? Yeah. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. Hey guys, listen, I have never even read the Bible. I've never been educated. I've been sitting beside the road, cursed by God all my life. I thought, rattling the cup. I've never had an education. I don't know anything. And even a dummy like me knows that he had to be from God. Have you ever noticed sometimes, and I'm all about education, so do not misunderstand. I've been educated. I got a master's degree. I'm all about education, so I'm not slamming education. But you got to be careful when you get educated, because sometimes you can get educated beyond your intelligence. Does that make sense? When your education exceeds common sense, you got a problem. And he's saying, I've been rattling a can, and I know. If you can open a blind man's eyes, you got something going on. I'm just here to tell you, I know it's from God. And see, that just kind of ticks them off. To this they replied, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And he's like, I heard that. Y'all been telling me that all my life. I knew that's what you thought about me. And I knew this healing probably didn't change your thought. And they threw him out. In other words, it means they excommunicated him from the community. Kabow! And he lands there and he's like, so I ain't gonna get no cake. Is that what y'all saying? Y'all ain't going to give me no parade. And he's probably thinking, I've been excommunicated all my life. I just moved somewhere. I can see. I bet he's thinking, that's bad to be kicked out. It probably hurts his feelings a little bit, but he's been kicked out all of his life. He's been out. He can see. He's probably still kind of happy about it. He's just going to pick up and move on and get a job somewhere and have a family. And this, I love this verse. This just tells you about what kind of Jesus is. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when he found him, so Jesus goes looking for him. He hears about all this stuff. So Jesus goes looking for him. And when he found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? And I bet that guy's thinking, I know that voice. I've never seen him, but I know that voice. But he's not sure. And he just had a bad experience by claiming to know Jesus, so he's not going to put himself out there too much. He says, who is he, sir? And the man asks, he said, tell me so I may believe in him. And Jesus says, you have now not just heard my voice, but you have now what? Seen him. Isn't that awesome? See, we met before, man, but now you just saw me. In fact, he is the one speaking with you. Then the man said, Lord, could you please explain how the mud on my eyes affected my eyesight? And could you please explain why you hot loogie and did that? And could you please explain why that water composition and how that healed my eyes? And could you please explain why you would do this on the Sabbath? Because all the people say you're not supposed to do things on the Sabbath. Would you please explain why you got out? He don't ask any of that because he don't care. Then the man said, Lord, what? I believe. And he worshiped him. You see, here's the deal. There's a lot of things about this story that blind man's thinking, I don't understand. I can't explain. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but there's one thing I cannot deny. I was blind, but now I see. Isn't that a great story? You see, you know why we doubt? We're just like the Pharisees. And in fact, if you're doubting right now, it's the same thing. Because there's so much about God that is unexplainable. Now, don't get me wrong. We have to be able to, students of the Word, learn the Word, and everything we say needs to be based in the Word. But I'm going to tell you something. You spend the rest of your life understanding the Word, and you're not going to have all the pieces filled in about God. God's just bigger than us. He's smarter than us. He's different from us. And there is always going to be unexplainable pieces. And when you focus on the unexplainable, here's what it's like. Go to this picture right here. If you got this picture and there's missing pieces inside the picture, you're going, I don't know what this picture is. I can't understand it. It's got missing pieces. I don't even see. I can't even figure this out. It's got to fill in the pieces, and I can't understand it. I can't believe in this picture because I don't know what this picture is. If I could understand the picture. Because from 1 inch away, I can't tell you what this is a picture of. But from where you're sitting, you don't even need these missing pieces, do you? What is this a picture of? See, you already know because you don't even need them filled in from where you're at. But from 1 inch away, you're never going to get it. And see, some of you are looking at this thing about God and you're trying to get right here. You're not going to figure it out. And if you keep focusing on the missing pieces, if you keep focusing on the unexplainable, you're going to miss the undeniable. And listen, when we read this story, the Pharisees look pretty dumb at the end. And I don't mean to be ugly to you at all. Please don't take it offensively. But if you keep zoning in, there's going to come a day in your life you're going to feel dumb. Because you don't ever step back and look at the big picture. You will miss the undeniable because you're so focused on the unexplainable. I've done it too, so don't feel like I'm beating anybody up. I started this telling you. And when I do it now, and when I start zoning in on why didn't you do that, God? Why did you allow that to happen? Why did you? And I get zoned in on one particular thing, and God don't act like I think He should act. When God don't do what I would do if I was God, it bothers me too. And when you zone in on that, you'll lose your faith, man. So for the remainder of the service, and I don't have much time, and I'm going to try to do it as quick as I can if I don't get too excited. I'm going to talk to you about some very undeniable truths. So hang with me. And here's what I want to do before we ever get into it. I'm going to tell you some things that there ain't nobody in this place going to be able to argue with me about. They're just you can argue, but they're undeniably true. And what I want you to do is I want you to step away from the Mona Lisa picture and look at the total picture. Everybody with me? Raise your hand. Here's some things that are absolutely undeniably true. Number one, there is a creation and a creator. Common sense tells you that. The fact that something exists is common sense. I mean, how many of you have ever seen a tree? Hold your hand up high. How many of you have ever seen an ocean? Keep it up if you go. Who's ever seen a sunset? Who's ever seen a sunrise? Who's ever seen a beach? Who's ever seen a mountain? Who's ever seen a baby? Then you cannot deny stuff exists. And for ages, the only explanation that we could come up with whenever you take God out of the equation, the only educated guess we can come up with, learned, studied people for ages, the only thing we can come up with is that something came from nothing. Does that make any sense to you? Please don't get so educated beyond your intelligence. Common sense tells you that's crazy. We've never found a civilization on the face of the earth, in Africa, in the jungles, in the Philippines, in Japan, we've never found a civilization on the face of the earth that did not believe that there was a creator. Now, they didn't worship the God that revealed in the Bible because they didn't have a Bible. But every civilization we've ever found can common sense. They look around the trees, the thing, and they know because something exists, there has to be a creator behind it. It's just common sense. That's the reason evolutionists are jumping ship on that whole theory over and over and over. Why? Because it's not logical. I mean, you understand that? You understand? You can't deny stuff exists, right? Everybody got that, right? The second thing that's just totally undeniably true, that people are thirsty. People are thirsty. There's something inside of the heart of mankind that cannot be quenched. Well, man has always wanted to lay down in bed at night and say, it is well with my soul, and they want to do that separate from God, and it's never been done. That makes us different. My boxer bulldog, he is perfectly happy sleeping on the floor, eating off the floor, and drinking from the toilet. It's thrill. He'll eat stuff that I could gross you out with, I'll be honest. He's very happy living out. He is happy. But mankind, we're never happy. We will kill to get happy. We will have adulterous affairs to be happy. We can't make enough money. We can't create enough stuff. There's been people who master people and just all sorts of things that are demented. Why? Because there's a thirst in their soul that cannot be satisfied. And they've tried to go from relationship to relationship, to thing, looking to satisfy, and it can't be satisfied. Birds are happy, rabbits are happy, deer are happy, dogs are happy. We can't get happy. And yet we're the most sophisticated creature on the earth. You can't deny that. The pain that's been caused because of people looking for happiness, you cannot deny that. History's on my side on that when you realize that. Third thing, you absolutely cannot deny. It's just a fact. Jesus lived, died, and resurrected. It's undeniably true that 2,000 years ago, there was a man named Jesus Christ. He showed up on the scene. He was a carpenter from Palestine. You shouldn't even know his name. You can't even tell me who the emperor was of Rome at that time. You can't even tell me who the guys whose name was, who crucified him. You can't even tell me who the most popular Greek mythologist was at that time. But everywhere around the globe, people know this Jewish carpenter from Palestine who we don't even know. We know his name. Why do we even know his name? You shouldn't know his name. He showed up. He said he was from God. Big deal. The Roman emperor said he was from God. Lots of people said he was from God. He taught strange things. Big deal. Lots of people teach strange things. He performed miracles. Okay? That's documented in history. That's the reason every religion on the face of the earth recognizes Jesus as an anointed person. You know why? Because it's documented. He did miracles. You can look at Roman history and realize he died on a cross, a Roman death on a cross. History tells us that, Roman history. Now, what the Roman history don't tell you, but the Bible tells you, is that he resurrected. And here's what you will find in Roman history, is that over 500 people said they saw him after his resurrection, and they talked to him, and they were willing to be beaten. They were bruised. They were hung on crosses themselves. They were put on islands and isolated because they would not shut up saying, I saw Jesus after he resurrected. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? I can beat you hard enough that you'll tell me your name is Susie. I can beat you hard enough and you'll leave your family. Why would a person be willing to go through that pain to be able to not give up the story? They didn't die because of what Jesus taught. They died because of what they saw. And they were not willing for anybody to make them not say that. Now, what you know about humans, people lie for a lot less, don't they? What would make a man and a woman be willing to be tortured and not just say, okay, whatever, I didn't see it? Why would they do that? Why would over 500 people do that? If it's a conspiracy and they didn't have Facebook, they didn't have the internet, why would that even be possible? You can't deny it. History's on my side. History's on my side. Facts are on my side. Let me tell you the fourth thing that's totally undeniably true is that the good news, the gospel, has spread. And it has spread incredibly. Don't you let anybody tell you any different. Today, over a third of the world's population claims to be Christians. You could go to any continent you want to go to, and you will find people who say, I believe there was a man named Jesus who came from God, he died, and he resurrected. You could go to any continent on the world and find it. In fact, it's the fastest growing religion in the world. I'm told this past week, and I hadn't verified it, but the person who said it, I trust them. They said Muslim is growing like 2.2%. Christianity is still growing at a rate of 6.7% around the world. You can't deny that, friend. Why do we even know his name? Why is that spreading? Why is that there? Because it's undeniably true. Can I explain everything about God? No. But this is undeniable. And if you deny it, you're going to look foolish. It's just a fact in history. Now, America is in trouble. Christianity is not spreading like that in America. It scares me for our nation. But we've been there, and look at where it brought us. Greatest nation in the world. Fifth thing is undeniably true. Jesus quenches people's thirst. You cannot, you say, Dale, that's subjective. Well, maybe it is, but I don't think so. Every week, people who were raised in church, people who's never been in church, people from all walks of life, people who've experienced tragedy, people who's all kinds of people. They come with the same story. They come with a story that says, I'm hopeless. I don't have peace. And they say, listen, I'm talking about, there's been presidents that say this, there's kings that say this, there's business leaders that say this, there's sports industry people that say this, there is scientists that say this, there's some poor people that say this, there's teachers that say this, there's some non-marijuana smoking, non-acid taking people, non-alcoholic people, non-psychotic people who say, leaders, smartest people in the world say, I didn't have peace. I encountered Jesus Christ. I placed my faith in Jesus, and I've got peace in my heart. You can go to any continent, any place in the world, and you're going to find the most adjusted, the smartest people in society say that. You can't deny that. You cannot deny that. That's all I'm saying. I don't mean this in any way condescending. I don't mean this in any way to be offensive. But I just need to let you know there's a lot of evidence for us to believe Jesus Christ came from God. And I understand if you doubt. I told you to start out with, I doubted. I still doubt. Don't mean it. I'm just saying, when you step back and look at it, it feels foolish. There's a man 2,000 years ago that came and he loved us so much he died for us. And when people get that, we've watched them build hospitals, we've watched them find purpose, we've watched them do good, create orphanages, we've watched them end hunger, we've watched them do incredible things when they got that. Undeniably true. So here's what happens. Show this picture. You get these pictures and you're like, okay, I can see that's who? Who is that? That's Mona Lisa. And you say, okay, I'm going to just keep moving. I don't understand. I got missing pieces, but I'm going to keep moving. Go ahead, go one more time. And for long, what happens, God's going to fill in the pieces for you. Now, you're never going to get all the pieces filled in. Let me just tell you that about God. God will make sure none of us get it all figured out. We're not going to get it figured out. There's going to always be missing pieces. But as you go, as you learn the Word, and you start thinking like God's thinks, your box gets bigger, and you'll be able to see God clearer if you'll keep walking. You understand this sermon? So here's what I want you to do. Number one, what I want you to do is I want you to seek the truth. Some of you say, Dale, I'm not missing just 3 pieces. I'm missing like the whole puzzle. Hey, you know what? Welcome to the kingdom of God. There's the Bible heroes. The Bible heroes doubted too. I'm just saying, keep coming. The Bible says if you'll seek, you'll find. Second thing I want you to do is I want you to keep focusing on the undeniable. I want you to get your mind off of why your grandma died and why your parents divorced and why tragedy happens and why, how about the dinosaurs and all these things that you've got as sideshows. Would you quit focusing on that and start focusing on God? Get on the undeniable truth. And then third, here's what I want some of you to do. Some of you's ready for this one. Some of you aren't ready for what I'm about to say, but some of you are. I want you to step out in faith. I want you to step out in faith. You see, some of you have been reading your Bible and you ain't been telling nobody because you don't want them to think you're a Jesus freak or nothing, but you've been doing it in secret. You know, you've been reading it on your phone. They thought you were Facebook and you're really reading the Bible, right? YouVersion. Great thing. And you've already learned that Jesus Christ is who He said He was. And you're already feeling it, drawing. You already are there. What I'm asking you to do is step out. I came Thursday night. Pastor Shane and I was at a conference in Florida last week, and we were flying in on Thursday, and I've been around. I was ready to preach Thursday, like I told you. I had the preacher in me ready to roll. I could not keep him chained up much longer. I sedated him with chocolate, but he was ready to come out. And we got to Raleigh. We flew over Jordan Lake. Pastor Shane and I were looking, and we're talking about Jordan Lake. And then the airplane turned. Then it went back and I saw it, some land. Then it turned again and went back over. And it felt like it turned like 3 times. Now, anybody knows me, I ain't a very patient person. If he'd have kept doing it, I'd have walked and said, hey, look, homeboy, you got to land this plane, man. I got some peoples I got to go preach to. You understand? I'm about to turn this whole 757 into a revival center if you don't land this plane. And I got to thinking, what if he just keeps circling the runway? You see, some of you doing that spiritually. You never landed a plane. You keep coming to church. Oh, God's a good God. But you never landed a plane. Today, I'm encouraging you. Land a plane, baby. Make the commitment. Put your faith in Jesus Christ. You know it is undeniably true. Jesus is the answer for the world. And that's why so many here can say, I was blind, but now I see. And I just want you to know, church, because I don't want you to have any doubt. 20 years ago, I crossed that bridge. And I've decided I'm a Jesus freak. And I have decided that I'm giving my life to Him completely. And I have decided that He loves me. And I've decided He forgave me. And I've decided He paid for my sins on a cross called Calvary. And I've decided He's going to come back and He's going to get me. And I'm going to spend my life with Him in eternity. I'm just saying that you don't have to believe that. That's what I believe. Would you stay with me? How many of you understand what I've said today? Raise your hand good and high. Put your hand down. Put your hand down. How many of you say, I'm ready to land the plane? Hold it up. I'm ready to put my faith. I've been doubting, but I ain't going to doubt no more. Here it is. Hold it up good and high. Good and high. Father, for every hand raised right now. Right now, in the name of Jesus, I want you to ambush them with your presence. Invade them with your love. Overpower them with your mercy. And transform their heart. As their hand is raised, you recognize who they are. I pray you release them from the doubt. Release them from the bondage of not being sure. Release them from Satan's tactics of you have to be understanding everything to be blessed by it. And release them to be able to be free to place their faith in you. Because it's undeniably true. I was blind, but now I see. And there's nothing you can do to change that. Now you make your commitment to Him and sing with Micah. This altar's open and let's worship the Lord together.